He's not even a football coach. He's not even a football referee. But we better, I think, let him explain. Will you give a warm welcome, please, to Mr. Eamonn Sweeney? Eamonn, how are you? Sit down there. Now, Eamonn, you better explain to these people why we did not win the World Cup in 1994.
Well, I suppose at the risk of making myself very unpopular, I might as well. It started in the 1970s, I think, like most young fellas from the West. I grew up listening to lots of gruesome country and Western songs.
Yeah.
And there was one I was very impressed with called The Deal. And in The Deal, this guy learned that his wife has gone to hospital to have a child. And the doctor says to him, there's been medical complications. Yeah. Either your wife or your child will have to die. So your man is naturally a bit put out by this. So he goes to the church. Yeah. And when he's in the church, he says, listen, God, you know, the crack. I mean, if you could save one of them, if you could save both of them, I'll do anything. So God says nothing to him. So he goes back to the hospital. And as he gets to the hospital, he feels himself becoming weak. And he collapses on the ground and dies.
Right.
But as he's dying, he hears the doctor going, it's an awful pity, he'll never know that by some miracle we've saved both his wife and child.
So this was the deal with God.
So this was the deal with God. So I was impressed by this fact that you could sort of get God to give you one thing and you were giving you something else. So in 1994, Sligo Rovers, who were my club, were in the FAI Cup semi-final. They were in the Shield final and they were pushing to win the Division 1 title. And Ireland were coming up in the World Cup. So I sort of said to God, I said, listen, if by any chance Sligo Rovers could win the 3 trophies, you can sort of let Ireland lose the World Cup. So we did win the 3 trophies, and it's my fault. And the worst thing was I went to the first game out in Talca Park, where we beat Italy. And I went with some of my friends, and we stocked up a drink beforehand. We put down 4 pints each on a tarpaulin. And as everyone else did, so you'd have them to drink during the first half. And Ireland scored after 10 minutes. And what happened was everyone jumped up. And when like 4,000 people landed on a tarpaulin, the sort of shake is a lot. So all the Guinness goes, and everyone is sitting around in a sea of black. And everyone is going, we're going to win the World Cup, but I knew we weren't.
All sitting in a pool of Guinness.
Sitting in a pool of Guinness, thinking we were going to win the World Cup. And
but you knew in your heart of hearts that it was all over.
Because as your man says in the song, that's the deal I made with my Lord. And that was it, so it's my fault.
You are, you are Sligo Rovers' biggest fan.
I wouldn't say I'm Sligo Rovers' biggest fan.
When did it all start, though?
It started before I was born. In the 9 months my mother was carrying me, she went to Rovers. She was at a game 2 days before I was born, so I didn't have a chance.
So even while you were in the womb, you were cheering for Sligo Rovers?
I was cheering for Rovers.
Yeah, they haven't really had a lot to cheer about. Now, in all fairness, 1994 was perhaps fine with the triple. They won something in 1983. What was that?
They won the FAI Cup final in 1983 and the league in 1977.
Now, what else did they win?
The league in 1937. So they had sort of 40 years of relative. But that's the good thing about them because it tests your endurance. You know, I mean, Liverpool and Man United is grand, but you know, it's where it's a challenge.
Okay, you are though a very big fan of Sligo Rovers. Now, I'm going to put a test to you. We've got a piece of video, and you've got to recognise the goal. Right, Eamonn? Have a look at that monitor there, and just tell me what the circumstances were. That's for 6 marks. What was that goal in what circumstances?
Oh, that's 1994 FAI Cup second round. It's Gavin Dyke scoring a header against Cork City.
Absolutely correct. Fantastic.
Yeah, it also shows one of the joys of supporting League of Ireland, because if you're in the Premiership, Sky take photos of you from 12 cameras, and that looks like one elaborate camcorder in the wind. But anyway.
Sligo Rovers have had some very distinguished fans. Will you tell me about some of them?
When I was young, I think I associated Rovers with fanaticism, because it was like some sort of minority religion that would just keep going because of the strength of belief. People believed something would happen one day. One of the great fans was a woman called Nancy Callahan, who for about 50 years roared abuse at players from home and away, and was a great fan. And towards the end of her supporting life, Rovers utilised this by putting her on a wooden chair behind the goals, so that when the opposing goalkeeper would run out to kick the ball, she would scream, "Miss it!" So she is, I think, sort of epitomises Rovers for me.
What about the man who managed to stay alive?
Oh yeah, my favourite Rovers fan ever was a man called Fraser Brown, who supported the club for years. And Fraser had supported the club for so many years that Rovers would regularly reach the cup final and lose, tragically. And the Sligo champion would always run a story where Fraser explained, you know, how we were cursed and fated never to win it. But he kept on, I think, well into his 70s or 80s, and when we finally won it in 1983, he was there, and he died a couple of years later. And I always reckon the thing about Fraser was, if we had not won the cup yet, he'd still be alive.
It was keeping him going.
It was keeping him going, it really was. I remember when we won that game, the cameras in RTE switched to this guy in the stand, this old man with the tears running down his face, and that was him.
And that was possibly the last time he was happy.
And that was possibly the last time he was happy, because this guy had to follow from 1937 to 1977. We've like, since I've started, we've won 3 things in 20 years, and that's a golden era for Sligo Rovers.
Give me another fan. Who else? There's a Mr. somebody.
Oh.
What was his name? Mr. Chatwin?
Johnny Chadha, who's the treasurer and chairman who's from the Punjab, and has been there in Sligo for, I think, 50 years, and who has a sort of a hymn which he sings from the steps of the town hall in Sligo Win on, I think.
Yeah, so he's done that a few times. But you've been very active in the international transfer market.
We have. The great thing about Sligo is that, it being the major international club it is, it's got an extensive foreign scouting system. So
how does it work?
Any player, well, how it works is that any player who comes from further away than London is a bit sort of pot luck. I mean, in the 1960s, there was a player called Gabriel Ojo, and the story was that a Sligo missionary was out in the bush when he was trying to convert some people, when he was entranced by the soccer skill of this young fella. So he arranged for him to get a one-way ticket to Sligo, where he turned up and played in the showgrounds in his bare feet. And sadly, he seemingly got the wrong guy, because poor Ojo was the worst player that was ever seen in the League of Ireland.
But he was welcome because he was foreign. Who else have you had? You've had some other good foreigners.
Oh, we've had some absolutely terrific foreigners. We've had Dutch men who I'm convinced again, you know, were sent to us for revenge. For years we sent the Dutch very bad ballad groups to play in pubs in Amsterdam. So they said, well, sod you, Paddy, you know, here are our bad Dutch footballers. We've also have a great syndrome is where Dublin players who are great for years against Sligo turn up in Sligo and are terrible for us. Because obviously, you know, if you're a Dublin player, when you have to go to Sligo, you know your time is up.
Yeah. You feel that referees are not particularly fair to Sligo Rovers?
No, referees aren't fair to Sligo Rovers at all. We went to play the game in the 80s where we had 4 goals disallowed. And one of our players sent off in one match. We were beaten by Home Farm, because it's very dispiriting. A lot of the referees then would be from Dublin. So the Dublin player would do a foul, and the referee would say something to him like, "Ah, well, Paddy, you know, that's the way it goes," because they generally knew each other, whereas they didn't really know our Nigerian imports, unfortunately.
But what's the shed?
Well, the shed is sort of the core part of the showground. The shed is where sort of all the hard young fellas stand. When I was a young fella, you start off when you're 7 or 8, and you're at the bottom of the steps, and you look over your shoulder like that at all these very hard young guys behind you. And over the years, you creep up the steps until you're in there. And the shed it's the sort of we sort of stand there on Saturday and attempt to frighten the other teams.
But it's the cradle of song.
It's the cradle of song. I mean, it's you know, whether it's the village people or Verdi or whoever you are, you're not too good to have the shed convert your masterwork into some song about Sligo Rovers.
But there's a certain protocol about who can start a song.
Oh, there is, yeah. You have to actually be one of the very hardcore guys who stand up in the corner, in this dark corner at the back, and I've never actually seen them. I don't even know if they exist or not, or they may disappear back into the wall every Saturday and come out again. But if anyone else stops it, there's this low rumbling growl begins. If someone else starts a song, and then the song stops. And then from the dark rumbling corner, the same song starts again, but sung by the sort of the elect.
And then it's okay to join in.
And then it's okay to join in.
Can you remember any of the chants or any of the...
I can, but I wouldn't be able to sing them.
I don't want you to just say them.
A lot of them are very obscene, to be quite honest. But there was lots of horrible ones directed at Shamrock Rovers, who are our great rivals. I mean, I think one of the most insensitive ones was "There's houses on Milltown." Or Milltown is a car park, Milltown is a car park, la 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 la.
Of course, this was after a great gesture of solidarity on the part of Sligo Rovers. When you were playing Shamrock Rovers, it was what, the last match in Milltown?
It was the last match in Milltown. It was a cup final game. And at half-time, we all climbed over the barbed wire which used to be there and met the Shamrock Rovers guys at the other end. And
it looked like 2 rioting squads of fans approaching each other to beat the lard out of each other.
Well, because it normally had been between us and Shamrock Rovers. But this was the last day of Milltown. I think we were going across there and we were thinking, this can happen. Your favourite football ground can be sold because someone wants to build houses on it. And when we got there, it was all sort of weeping and embracing and so on. But it was back to normal. Like, obviously, by the end of the evening, someone took a Sligo Rovers flag off a lad and burned it and so on. So it was back to the normal caper.
And then Milltown is a car park, Milltown is a car park.
Yeah, which is a horrible
It's a hugely entertaining... Now, I knew nothing about Sligo Rovers, and the thing is, you don't have to know anything about Sligo Rovers to enjoy this. There's only one Red Army is your ambitious title, which will not please all the Man United fans or the Liverpool fans, but it is a great book. Eamonn Sweeney, thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks very much, Pat.
Hey, take it there, take it. It's a hoot. The book is a hoot. All right, clue.